this is the first of our Vandal Career Workshop series on resumes. There will be several of these workshops throughout the semester. A lot of them you'll notice are geared towards preparing you for career fair. So for today, we're going to break this session down into two main topics. I'll briefly cover career services, who we are, what we do, some important events that are coming up, and then we'll get into the topic of the day, which is resumes. So here at Career Services, with our motto conveniently for everyone in the classroom here blocked out by the screen, your future is our mission. And what that means is, like a lot of programs on campus, we are very concerned about your success here at the university. But unlike a lot of the programs here, we are also concerned about your success once you leave. We're here to help you in career development, which is kind of this big nebulous word there. But what that really means is helping you figure out what you want to do in life and then how do you get there. So to help you do that, we provide quite a few services that are free to you as a Vandal: professional document work, resumes, what we'll talk about today, but also CVs, cover letters, how to go about crafting those, how to make them powerful, how to make them effective, graduate school applications, anyone thinking about going to grad school, job and internship searching. This is another big one. Why are we here at the University of Idaho, right? To get a job, right? That's what that degree is supposed to help us do. Interview prep. There are strategies for successfully navigating the interview process, for really kind of stacking the odds in your favor. We can also help with that. Salary and benefit negotiation. You guys, this is an important one. Networking, professionalism, big, scary, nebulous words that we go, what the heck is that? That's what people in suit and ties do, isn't it? No, this is for everybody. Navigating LinkedIn is a big part of that. And then career fair prep, that really big event that's coming on up that you guys are all going to, right? Everybody's going to the career fair. Yeah, we'll talk about why the career fair is important in a second. So all of that together really is career development. Those are services that we offer. You can learn more about them through our website. The best way to get in touch with us is through Handshake. If you go to the Career Center tab, and you click that, you can schedule an appointment with any of the career consultants. So a couple of events that you guys would probably benefit from, that I think everybody would benefit from really, would be Resume Rush. I mentioned that to some of the early birds here. This is an event that's going to go on at the end of this month, 2 days. All the career consultants will be in one place, and essentially we'll be there from 10 to 1 in the afternoon. And we will be doing quick 15-minute resume reviews. Closet is a really cool event. It goes on with Resume Rush, both days, the 27th and the 28th. The University of Idaho has a really cool program where the faculty and staff donate lightly used professional attire, suits and ties, business attire, to the students. You come to this event, they'll actually be partnered with us for Resume Rush, so we'll be in the same spot. And you can actually peruse all the clothing that's been donated. You're allowed to try on all that clothing. It's really to get you ready for career fair. Networking night, a lot of the employers, virtually all the employers who are at career fair, will be at an event the night before called networking night. Every college is putting on their own networking event. Check on Handshake to look where your college is hosting that event. And as you can see here, it's meant to be a little bit more laid back, a little bit more casual. So we're not maybe in that full business attire. Maybe we're in business casual. It's meant to be a more laid back social atmosphere where I get to kind of network and engage with working professionals. Obviously, the next day we will have the spring career fair. We already have over 100 employers signed up who will be here. It will be a very productive career fair. Strongly recommend you attend. Even if you're not a senior, even if you're not looking for a job, this is a great place. Like I said, practice those skill sets. So let's dive into resumes now. Another good way of thinking about our resume might be as a targeted advertisement of who you are. So Dwight has an idea of who he is with certain characteristics or skill sets about why he might be a perfect fit for the job. I don't know if this is an effective resume. I probably would say it's not an effective resume, but we've got the gist here, right? This is a personalized, targeted advertisement of you, not of who you've worked for previously, but of you. What's key here is that it's concise, because what a resume is not, It's not a bit of a word vomit here. It's not a CV. It's not an essay. No one is going to want to read something that's 15 pages long. Resumes are concise and they are tailored to the position that you are applying for. So what the resume is for, yeah, it's to show employers how your experience and your skill sets make you a perfect fit for that job. Why should we hire you? Why the resume is so important is this is the primary document that the vast majority of employers will see when they're considering who they're going to interview. So when you apply for a job, that's what they're operating off of. The resume that you sent in, you will be just a piece of paper. It is a paper version of you. So it needs to concisely and effectively state, hey, I'm perfect for this job. You definitely want to interview me. So how this plays into how we go about writing and creating them, well, we're going to base them off of the job description. Job descriptions, these are your holy grail. This is your roadmap to the job. They are telling you exactly what they're looking for in a candidate. Those job descriptions, they're not some HR accidental piece of words that got grouped together. No, they're intentionally developed. I've said it a few times, tailoring the resume, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to match the skills and experiences that are in that job posting as much as we can. We're not lying on resumes, but we're going to look at our experiences and go, oh, yeah, I definitely check that box. I'm going to craft my resume to reflect the language that's in the job description. Attention to detail is important here. Again, as I said, they're going to be looking at a single piece of paper here. So proofread everything. Also, resumes should be visually pleasing, right? We want them to be effective. In order to be effective, they have to be full of good information, but you gotta want to read them. We want them to enjoy reading it. We don't want an employer to go, this thing's giving me a headache, because they will literally just throw that resume aside and they'll go, oh, on to the next resume. We want them to go, hey, this is nice. It's easy to read. I like what I'm seeing. It's visually pleasing. We want resumes to be enjoyable. So what goes in a resume? Proofreading. We want to make sure we have that important information, right? Formal education, experience relevant to the job. We'll talk about what that means. Hard and soft skills. Those are distinct categories. Relevant extracurriculars, volunteerism. There's a lot of stuff you can put on a resume. So we're going to dive into an example resume now. We're going to get into the weeds here. We're going to start off at the top. As you said, that header, our name, our contact information here, right? Now, when it comes to our emails, all of this should look professional. So your University of Idaho email, perfectly professional. Maybe not going to put up skaterpunk689 at Hotmail, unless, hey, maybe I'm trying to apply for Volcom. Maybe I'm trying to get into the skating industry. Then that might actually look good. But think about what this is saying. So if you have an email that's not the university one that you want to use, that's fine. Do you think it's professional for your industry? That's the question you want to ask yourself. Also, we want to make sure we're checking that email too, right? So is our contact info listed? And more importantly, is it accessible? Important details to double check, right? So this is how they're going to get in touch with us. If I put up contact information, they better be able to contact me that way. There are a lot of different generations in the workforce. Some people prefer email. Some people prefer phone. If I get someone who wants to get a hold of me through phone and they go, and first they're hearing a robot, they're thinking to themselves, all right, this guy didn't even set up his voicemail box full. Okay, whatever. I have several other qualified candidates. I'm moving on to the next person. Something simple. Doesn't have to be, like I said, super fancy, but they do want to hear my voice, right? So make sure they can contact me. Make sure my name is the biggest thing. Remember, we're trying to associate ourselves with what they're reading here. So my name should be the biggest thing on that document. I want to connect all those skills and experiences with me. As we go a little bit further into our resume, the education section. For most of you guys, this is what will be at the top here. This is what's going to define you the most within your kind of career stages right now. So we do want to see your degree spelled out explicitly. But you'll see it's rather clean. I just have my degree, maybe a minor. I can have my GPA up there. Don't have to. It's not really required. If I'm proud of it, sure. Certainly the university, you'll notice I don't have the university up top. And what's bolded here is the degree. Again, think about what I'm drawing attention to. Who's applying for the job? I'm a Vandal. I love UI. That being said, I don't care. I'm not trying to put UI. UI is not applying for the position. So your degree, make sure it's listed according to your audit. Don't abbreviate it. This is the exact way the degree should present in the degree catalog of the university. The reason for that is companies do have the ability to search through universities. What are the degrees that are offered? A lot of this is automated. If they see, Bachelor of Science in ESHS, that abbreviation might not jive well with their search systems, and they're going to go, it's not a real degree. Moving on to the next one. So make sure we're spelling that out explicitly. They also may not know what that acronym is too. This is why acronyms can be very dangerous and abbreviations can be dangerous. So yeah, if you have any minors, you can go ahead and list that. Your graduation date, go ahead and put it up there. You can put expected. You could also put May 2026. I know that's in the future. And as I said before, what is standing out here, this is a theme that you'll notice throughout the resume. I bolded this because I wanted to draw attention to my degree. It's going to be the most important part of my education, is specifically what my degree is. Moving on into the various section headers, you'll notice that they look different than the information, the entries that are within them. I'm just making the resume easy to read. I put them in all caps, I underline them. I didn't really change the font size. I'm just saying, hey, this is my skills section. Here's a service leadership and awards section. Makes it easy to differentiate between the various sections of the resume. Easy to read is what we're after here. When it comes to our skills, we're going to talk about hard skills. Soft skills do not go in a skills section. We're not going to lift soft skills. What I mean by that is communication, leadership, team working. Those are soft skills that are very important. They're equally important as hard skills, but they don't get listed. The reason for that is that they're hard to kind of summarize in one word. If somebody tells you they have great communication skills, you might think to yourself, oh, it's fantastic. What does that mean? What does that look like? Can you demonstrate that for me? That's what we want to see. If you tell me you have a CPR certification, I know exactly what that looks like. If you tell me you're proficient in Microsoft Office, I know what Microsoft Office is. If you tell me you have knowledge of a certain type of hardware or equipment or a training or a technique, those are hard skills. I know what those are. Soft skills, you want to describe them in your experiences. So those will go on your resume, but they'll be talked about in the experience there. We'll get into that in a second there. So are our sections formatted the same? Yeah, making sure I'm keeping everything kind of standardized throughout the resume. That's that ease of reading there. These section headers can be changed. I could call that relevant skills. I don't necessarily have to call it work experience on a resume. How many here have volunteered? So you probably didn't work very hard and gain meaningful experience from that volunteer because it wasn't paid, right? No, it's not. That's obviously not true. Yeah, you guys get a lot of valuable experience from it. So we actually shy away from that title, work experience. I like to go with maybe relevant experience or engineering experience or teaching experience, leadership experience. I'm going to, again, tailor it to the resume, make it more explicit to the job that I'm applying to. So it doesn't have to necessarily be just experience, work experience, skills. Now, if we get into those various entries within, say, our experience section, things we want to see right off the bat, like I was saying, your title first. Moscow High School, not applying for that job. You're applying for the job here. So in this example, tell me what your role is. Now, you guys often have some flexibility in this. Sometimes you will have an official title for your position. Many times you won't. So you might be able to kind of play with that title. Were you just a researcher or were you an engineering researcher? Were you an assistant researcher? We can kind of be a little bit flexible with those titles there that allow us to speak more to the job that we're applying to. You'll notice how we talk about that entry looks very clean. I prefer the bullet style. You don't have to do it this way. I would avoid using paragraphs of text. People looking at these will tend to get lost in them. Does anyone know the average time? I keep talking about, how quickly someone will go through resumes. Does anybody know the average time a search committee or somebody reviewing resumes will spend with an individual resume? Does anybody want to take a guess to the average time?
30 seconds.
30 seconds?
Go with 15 seconds.
You're not that far off the money. Yeah, about 10, 15 seconds. You can go through a resume once you've been doing it for a while very quickly. About 10, 15 seconds, I can extract all that pertinent information. So you want them to spend as much time as possible with your resume. That's why we want to be visually pleasing. We want to bring them in with what they're seeing here, but we also want to make it easy to read. If there's a large paragraph of text, if you're driving down the highway there and you see a billboard and it's got 3 words on it, you're like, oh yeah, okay, cool, great information. Driving down that same highway and you see a novel written on that billboard, you're not reading that thing. You're gonna crash. You're not reading that thing. You're like, oh wow, okay, I wonder what that said. Same thing with your resume. You want this to be easy to read, right? Now, when we're talking about these entries here, when we're talking about our experiences, we're being descriptive. We're not being vague or being broad. We're talking about what we did, and we're being very descriptive here. So I didn't just coach students as an assistant track trainer. I coached 35 student athletes, and I coached them with mentorship and patient care. So I've told you kind of how many students I was working with. I gave you an idea on the scale of my experience. Because it's one thing to have worked with 5 people. It's another thing to have worked with 50 people. Totally different experiences, right? I want them to know kind of the breadth of my experience and the depth of my experience here. So the better picture that you can paint, again, they're just operating off that resume. The better picture you can paint of your experience, the more they're going to go, oh, okay, I see what this person was doing. I see how their experience is really kind of lining up with our needs. You're going to help them understand how you will be a perfect fit for that job. So what we call quantitative information, very helpful. You can ask yourself those investigative questions, the who, what, when, where, why, what were you doing? Who was involved? Where was it at? Who was on the team? Things like that will help you write about this. Using what we call action verbs, you'll see a lot of corrected, wrapped, created, diversified. This is a marketing technique, but it is still very effective. It adds a little bit of liveliness to our roles here. You go to the grocery store, $3.99 is $4. But $3.99 still looks cheaper than $4. It is a silly technique, but it does work. It does create a little liveliness with our education, with our experience here. Now, when it comes to formatting, we're going to pull back here and look at all those sections put together. A lot of these bullet points are essentially getting to the fact that this document is visually pleasing. It's organized neatly. You can distinctly see, hey, there's an education, there's research experience, therapeutic experience. Like I said, you can change those titles. Here's my skills. Here's some leadership and awards. I can jump through this document very quickly. Okay, you had time as an intern, research assistant, a couple of times as a physical therapy aide. Cool. I can move through that document quickly. I get a summary of your experience on paper. So we want our documents to look very clean. These are going to be 1-page documents for now. They can expand to 2-page documents as you accrue more and more experience. Generally for now though, at your guys' career stages, it'll more than likely be a 1-page document. We don't really go beyond 2. These are meant to be concise, as I said before. These aren't multiple pages in length there. And you'll see that really, I only have a few different font styles. I didn't go crazy on here, right? I've got some bolded text, got some capital text, just clean and easy to read document. That's really what we're after with the resume. So what else can go on there? You saw at the bottom, I had awards, but hey, awards, honors, scholarships. If you have scholarships, go ahead and put that dollar amount. Show them your academic achievements there. Projects, research experience. How do I show I'm passionate about an industry? Who here is part of an association or a club, maybe on campus? Right? All right. That's a great way to demonstrate that you're passionate about some industry or career path that you're pursuing. You're part of a professional group. You're part of a club or an organization. Those can go on your resumes. If you have an officer status in one of those clubs, hey, now I've got leadership experience. That was a quick and easy way for me to show that soft skill of leadership just by saying, yep, I'm an officer in this club. So what we're talking about when we mean soft skills, this will also be referred to as what they call core competencies. If you have heard that phrase before, you'll probably hear it more during your time here at UI. These are important. So this is a report from NACE in 2025. This is a professional organization. It stands for the National Association of Colleges and Employers. Essentially, a lot of companies and colleges have a working relationship to say, how do we help students develop their skills so we can have a talented workforce? And they put out a survey where they asked all these employers, what are attributes that you're seeking on a candidate's resume? What do you want to see on there? Soft skills, hard skills? Nearly 90% of employers said, I have to see problem-solving skills on a resume. Not listed again, but demonstrated in that resume. Show me you have those critical thinking skills, right? Now, if I look at the breakdown here, problem solving, ability to work in a team, communication skills, initiative, strong work ethic, those first 5 are all soft skills. All the way down here is actual technical skills, hard skills. They're still very important, but employers are looking for those soft skills. So they do need to be incorporated into the language of your resume. Another way of looking at this, I pulled up earlier I pulled up a job posting for natural resource specialist. Okay, let's go through the job description. These are just the preferred skill sets that they're looking for. In blue, I've highlighted a lot of hard skills. All right, they want to see Microsoft 365, i.e. Microsoft Office. You guys all have access to Office. You can all put that you're proficient with this. They want to have knowledge of plant pathology, being able to manage data, technical writing, doing state and federal reports. Okay, all good hard skills. Look at the other half of this job posting here. Full half of this is soft skills, capable of taking initiative, planning and organizing, working independently as part of a team. It is important. It's not just fluff. Like I said, it is important to have that. So if you're telling me that you led a team or you collaborated with 2 other teams, you're showing me communication skills, you're showing me teamworking skills, you're demonstrating that. Paint that story for me in your resume because they want to see it just as much as they want to see the hard skills that you're getting from your classes, that you're getting from all those hands-on learning opportunities. So what doesn't go into a resume? Can somebody think of something that might not go into a resume? Should not go into a resume. What about pictures? Yeah, none of this stuff should be on here. There's a very good reason for this. If you're applying for state jobs, federal jobs, you're actually not allowed to have this information in there. You're not allowed to base a candidate's viability on this kind of information. So if it's included, that application is actually automatically rejected. A lot of companies will have that same policy too of, yeah, we don't base resumes on this.
Well, a lot of applications would ask for that, so how would we deal with that problem?
They ask for a photo.
Or like just any of the other things, because I've seen resumes with those questions on them.
That they'll ask for a picture or
Not necessarily a picture, but just for like age, like citizenship status, like disability, like.
you want to be careful with those. A lot of those are actually questions that are not allowed to be asked under federal law. So I'd be curious where you're seeing those kind of, we can have a conversation about that a little bit later. But generally, there are certainly fields where this can come up, law enforcement being one of them. You do have to meet physical requirements, right? Joining the military. There are certainly jobs out there where these questions are fair game. They speak to the nature of the job. But for the vast majority of careers and industries out there, these are questions that are not allowed to be discriminated on. You do need to discriminate between applicants, which is better qualified for the job. You can't use these categories. So we don't want to provide this information. Like I said, a lot of state agencies, federal agencies, if they see this information, they have to by law, automatically reject those applications. So we don't want to get our application kicked out just because we included this stuff. Best practice, none of this should really be on there. So who here has used a template for their resume? It's okay, you can admit it. We're gonna want you guys to stay away from templates, and there's a few good reasons for that. It's very common that students are using templates, not just students, a lot of people in the workforce are using them. But there's quite a few reasons that we're gonna have you guys stay away from them. First and foremost is they can be quite distracting. Like I said previously, when you hand in assignments to your professors, you want them to be easy to read. You want them to be enjoyable to read. You want them to get the right information very quickly. If I'm going through this and I'm only spending, seconds on this resume, and I have to scour and look for all these sections, I'm not going to waste my time with that resume. I'm going to move on to one that's more easily formatted for me to read, one that's a little bit more straightforward. I mean, this looks a little bit more straightforward, but now we're running into other issues. And there's other things that are a problem with this too. We never know who might have a color blindness. We never might not know what kind of color issues, biases we're dealing with. This might look visually pleasing to you, might not look visually pleasing to the person reviewing your resume. Now with templates, we also run into the issue that they're not readily adjustable. If you guys have used templates, you've probably noticed you can't really move things around. You kind of have to keep these text boxes there. Resumes are malleable. Those sections we talked about, education, experiences, you can actually move them around. They don't have to stay in that order. And you will move them around. Your education section, for instance, it'll actually start to move down over time as you get more and more experience in your industry. So templates aren't readily adaptable, and we don't really like that. A really dark reason for not using templates too is that they don't handle well with a lot of what we call applicant tracking systems. So these are systems that help employers essentially move through large piles of applicants. Nowadays, we get a lot of people applying for jobs. How do I process all of these? We use automated systems. A robot essentially is scanning your resume. If anyone has ever had a rejection that came within hours of submitting, or maybe that next day, odds are your resume wasn't actually seen by someone. It was more than likely reviewed by an ATS and it was rejected without human eyeballs ever even seeing it. Templates screw up with ATS systems. There are hidden elements like text boxes and columns and frameworks that they can't really process. So they might be reading this resume here and they might go, okay, education, Mount Flores College, assistant manager. That's not a degree. Does not meet the minimum qualifications of having a degree, application rejected. So it is best really to stay away from those templates, build it out yourself. As I said before, these are used by companies to really help process large volumes. All sorts of companies, large and small, across the board, increasingly using AI in their systems to process these resumes. Unfortunately, about 70% of resumes, of applications really, will be rejected by an ATS. So you don't want to make your resume vulnerable to rejection from these systems. So tips for beating those robots. Let me see. I don't think I'm going to be able to move that away. What this chunk of text says right there is avoid those quick apply buttons. So if you're on Handshake or you're on LinkedIn and you see a quick apply, where you can just throw in a resume and be done with it, we want to avoid that because they're going to have some in-house ATS that then that's going to process your application and then send it off to the company where they might have their own ATS system. We don't want to go through multiple rounds of these systems. The best practice is go directly to that company's website. Apply directly through them. Use Handshake and use LinkedIn to find those jobs, but then go directly to that company's website and apply through them as much as you possibly can. Again, that job description, it's never going to go away. Study it. It's how those algorithms are being created. The ATS systems are basing their search parameters off of what the job description is saying. Remember I said earlier about not abbreviating things. Even something like, I have a BS in ESHS, Bachelor of Science in Exercise, Sport, Health Science. Yes, I know the degree. We want to be careful with those. They may not be programmed to recognize those abbreviations. Abbreviations can really mess up ATSs and they can go, yeah, there's no degree here. So we want to be careful with using abbreviations. A good place where you could use abbreviations is if they're industry specific. Maybe if I'm applying for a computer science position and I'm simply listing programming languages, C++, I've worked with SQL for database management. Okay, that's acceptable. CPR, I'm applying for maybe in the medical field. Okay, but for the most part, we do want to stay away from abbreviating things. List top keywords multiple times in your resume. So if they're looking for leadership skills and they keep talking about leadership skills, talk about leadership in various experiences. I had leadership here using that word. I had leadership here using that word. We're not repeating exactly what we're saying. We're reinforcing our skill. Does that make sense? We're going to reinforce that particular skill set in multiple places. It's going to make our resume a little bit stronger. Spelling is critical. Again, proofreading. If somebody sees a typo in your resume, like I said, it's all they have to go off of. But at least a human can recognize that as a typo and know what you were trying to say. Turns out robots kind of suck with typos. Throws off the entire system. All of a sudden, yeah, no, that's not a real word. That's not a real degree. Application rejected. Stay away from those long, or use the long form words. Again, staying away from the acronyms as much as possible. Avoid using the headers and footers. Those hidden elements, tables, columns, they kind of mess stuff up. Stick to standard fonts. Now, for art resumes, portfolios, that's a bit of a different world. So there's a bit of a caveat there. But in general, sticking to standard fonts that are not elaborate, that a lot of these systems will handle well. And I'm just going to throw this in out there. Be careful using AI and ChatGPT. More and more AI is being used to recognize AI. A lot of employers aren't really happy when they see it. I would probably use it briefly. I would probably use it to proofread my document. I would probably use it to touch up my language, but I wouldn't be very careful about using it to develop content. I'd be very careful about using it to develop how I'm describing things.